Hi and welcome back to the Woolly Society. Today we are going to go through everything you need to have and to know to start knitting. Now starting off, you need knitting needles. There are different kinds of knitting needles, but I recommend these interchangeable ones that you can change cords on because you can use them when both working flat and in the round. So that's why I actually like them the most. But you need to adjust to the project you are working, of course. So if you're going to use these type of needles, you are also going to need this cable. Now this is a swivel cable, so it moves as you work. I like these a lot. So to use these cables, you just put them into the needle and twist them on. Now I really like this part, like it's a bit, the excitement to start a new project. Yeah, that's the feeling I get all the time. Now most of these cables, at least the ones I bought, come with these stoppers, so you can use to put stitches on hold. And then you get this key that you can twist and just secure them. So you want to put both of the needles onto the cable and make sure that they're securely on using that key you got. First you are going to need yarn and stitch markers to mark off important spots for decreasing, increasing, working your cables. And talking about cables, you might also want some cable needles. I like these ones, there's different types. And also for just putting stitches on hold, you can have these stitch holders. I use these ones, but there's many different kinds. You can also just use like one of these. Or you could use one of your interchangeable cables if they come with these stoppers. So you just put them to the ends and then they hold your stitches. You scrap yarn, there's many different ways to put stitches on hold, but I think these ones are very good also. So to start knitting, you need to have loops on your needle. And to get those on the needle, you need to cast on. So it's called casting on, and this first one is the backward loop cast on, which is the easiest one for beginners to learn. To get started, hold your thumb on top of the yarn and just twist like this. And that creates a little hole there, a little loop, and then you just put your needle through and pull up that loop. Now onto that yarn tail and pull tightly. And then just repeat by putting your thumb on top of that yarn and twisting around in clockwise to get the little loop. And then just putting your needle through from the bottom upwards. Your thumb like that, just put this needle in and pull. Let's make some more together. See? That cast the stitches to knit into. Now while this is a good method for beginners, because it's easy to cast on, I really recommend it because it has some issues. When you're going to turn and work into them, you notice the stitches are twisted. So they're going to be harder to work into. So that's the issue with this one. It also easily comes loose, so you can see. So that's the biggest issue with this method. Now let's take a closer look at our next method, long tail cast on. Start with a slip knot. To make a slip knot, just form a ring and then pull the yarn through that ring. Keep your yarn tail to the left side, put it onto the needle. So you go like this, you hold yarn, these two or these three fingers, find these two is enough. Okay, you open up like this, and just pull from your thumb, you turn it around, twist it, and you just catch this here. The yarn that your index finger is holding, you just pull it through and then you release. And that makes one. So one more, go through, pull this up, pull that through. That's two. Now you want to keep the yarn tail where you pick up yarn from to the left side. Right? So you hold it like this, go through, pull that one up and through. Now this is a good one. When you see, you have your, when you turn to work, you have your leading leg to the front, right? And that's how we want it. We always want the leading leg to the front, because that means we don't have twisted stitches. So we can just work straight into it. The next step is my favorite one, is the German twisted cast on, which I would recommend you try to learn, because it really is the best one, because it gives a stretchy fabric. This one, I mean, while it's good and doesn't really, like, it doesn't have the adversaries backward loop cast on has that we looked at before. And this one, yeah, it tends to not stretch very well, as you can tell. So let's move on to the German twisted cast on. So now the first step to start knitting is to cast on your stitches, right? And I'm gonna use this one with the cables attached to them. So I'm gonna use a technique called the German twisted cast on. And it's a long tail cast on. The German twisted cast on is also a long tail cast on technique, which means you want a long tail to the left. For this technique, just as with the long tail cast on. I'm going to need to cast on 20 stitches. I'll just tag a little extra onto there. Then I make this just a regular knot. Then we make a little slip knot like we did before with the long tail cast on. Now you want to keep your long tail to the left side at all times. This is important because we're picking up yarn from both sides, and we also want the legs of our stitches to face the right side. We're gonna start casting on. So you want to keep your long tail to the left, and you go through those two and hold with your ring finger and your little finger. Hold with these two fingers. Hold this like that, so you have your thumb like that and your index finger like that. Okay, so let's do that again. So we hold it like this. So we hold the two threads with our two fingers like that. We go through with our index and our thumb through the yarn. Then we twist it a little bit. Then we go through both of these underneath, and then we go through to pull up a loop like this. Then we twist it a little bit towards our finger yarn tail here. Then we pull this through this one right here. So we have one loop here, and then we have a little hole here. You pull it through that one. You just keep on doing this now. So it seems hard at first, but it's actually quite, like, once you get the hang of it, it really goes easy. Let's cast on 20. So now I have cast on 20, okay? So we're ready to work our stitch pattern. And let's start off working flat. So the German twisted cast on casts on live stitches, which counts towards our first row, but we're just gonna ignore this for the sake of this video and head straight into stockinette, starting with a row of knit stitches. So using our right needle, we are going through the back of the loop, through to the front, and then we yarn over counterclockwise and pull up a loop through that. And then we're gonna repeat that. Go in through the back, towards the front, yarn over counterclockwise, and then pulling up a loop onto the right side needle, pulling it off of the left. And just keep on going like that, and there you have your knit stitch. So let's work this first row together now. And please remember to keep your working yarn in the back when you work the knit stitch. something called a selvage stitch for the edges. But if you're going to sew pieces together, you can skip that. But if you're working flat and you're going to want to have nice edges, for example, if you make a blanket or something, then you might want to make the selvage stitch. And to do that, the most common one is just to knit every first and last stitch. Regardless if you're working a purl row or a knit row, just knit the first and last stitch of each row. We are going to knit the first stitch. Okay, so the first one we knit is to have this selvage border, and then we're going to start purling. To purl, you keep your yarn to the front, you go through the stitch from front through back, and then you yarn over counterclockwise and just pull up a loop and pull a stitch off. You're gonna make a few more together. So you go through from the front to the back and keep your yarn in the front all this time. You yarn over counterclockwise and pull a stitch off the hook. As you can see here, we get these little bumps, which is the purl stitch, and that's how you can always identify which row you are on. Stockinette, we want to put bumps on top of bumps and knit stitches on top of knit stitches. Now let's just keep working these purls together a few more times. You have 1, 2, and 3 of the purls. In the front we have 1, 2, and 3 of the knit. So that's basically the stockinette stitch. 1 row of knit stitches, 1 row of purl stitches alternated. Now if you were to not alternate between the knit stitch and the purl stitch, you would be working the garter stitch. Let's do that together for a few rows as well. So let's just start. Now, if you want to continue on the swatch you've already been working on, or you want to start over, it's up to you. But what you're doing is your first row is a knit, and your second row is a knit, and your third row is a knit, and your fourth row is a knit. So all the rows are just knit stitches. And that's how you work the garter stitch when you're working flat. Okay, so now worked 4 rows of the garter stitch as well. You can see here, this is our right side. You can see with the knit stitches there, and this is our wrong side. So you can see the garter stitch creates this bumpy fabric on both sides. So that is the garter stitch, and this is the way it's going to look. So let's take a closer look at how to do the stockinette in the round, because it's a little bit different. So I've cast on all my stitches, and now I'm ready to start knitting across, right? And to do so, first step is making sure we have no twists around. So we want them all untwisted. So just keep them like this and then check so that we have no twists along the cast on stitches. And then we are going to work into from this side to the other side, right? This is the last cast on I made. So now we're going to attach it to the other side. Just make a circle. And then to do so, I knit into this first stitch. I'm going to knit into it. And you can see I need to pull it really tight. Like really, really tight to make sure you don't get any gaps between these 2 stitches. Knit one tight. I'm gonna knit the second one really ridiculously tight as well, because we really don't want any gaps. Then doing this, you just keep on knitting across. I'm just gonna keep on knitting around and around. You don't need to turn, you don't need to do anything, and we don't work anything other than this knit stitch. Okay, I'm gonna work around until I reach the first part again, and then I'm gonna show you how to keep on working. So now we're back. We worked a full circle, And what I like to do is put a stitch marker just to mark off where our row begins and ends. Although you can count that, you can kind of see it later, but it kind of, yeah, it just melts in a bit the further you go. It would be harder to see where you started and where you end a round. So just keep on working, just keep on knitting until you feel you are done, or to your pattern tells you to work to. So the most important thing to remember when you're working in the round is to keep your first stitch where you join the two sides very tight, and also that you have, like, you only work the knit stitch. Your wrong side is to the inside of the circle, and what you're seeing, what is facing you, is your right side, and that is your knit side. So now let's say you are finished with your work, you are done, and you just wanted to cast off your stitches, you want to bind off. Now what you're going to do is actually very simple. You want to knit the first stitch, and once you've knitted that one, you're going to knit another stitch. You always want 2 loops on your right hand needle, and then you're going to take that first loop and pull on top of and over the second loop. Now you have 1 loop on your hook, you're going to knit a second one, and then just pull the loop, the first loop, on top of the second again, and just keep on doing that. Now that is the most common bind off. Now me personally, I usually knit garments, which means I want a stretchy cast off. I don't want to use this, it's a bit more stiff, a little bit more, like, not as stretchy to the fabric. So what I do, I knit just like we did before. We still want 2 loops on a right side needle. So I'm knitting up, so I have 2, and then I go through. You want to have your right hook through the back loop of those 2 stitches. So you can put them back on to your left hook if you want to, or just go through the front, of that right hand needle, and then you yarn over counterclockwise over that right hand needle and pull up a loop. You just keep on doing that, and that will give you a bit more of a stretchy bind off. So once again, I go through the back. I have my right hand needle through the back loops, those 2 stitches, yarn over counterclockwise and pull up a loop, and let those 2 fall off on my left hand needle. Let's just work a few more together. And now you can tell my yarn is through, so I need to attach new yarn. And how would you go about doing that? Well, let me show you. And this is also how you change colors. So you just take your new yarn and you go through your loop as though you're going to knit, or if you're on a purl side, as though you're going to purl. And first you just put a little loop of the new yarn onto your hook, and then use knit as usual or purl as usual. So use yarn over as usual, pulling both of those yarns through. So you're gonna have a double stitch, so to say. It looks like as though you have 2, you only have 1. So those counts as 1. Now when you continue working, you can either keep on working with both yarn tails, so your new yarn and the old yarn that you left, you just release there. Now if it gets too thick, for example here, I feel like it's too thick, I just twist those 2 yarn tails, the short ones, and I just knit as usual. And then once you've done that, you can continue carrying them for a few more stitches if you want to. This is actually very, very good to do, because then you don't have to weave them in later. So this leaves you with 1 loop on your hook. So just cut your yarn off and pull the yarn through that loop, and that finishes off your bind off. And now you can really tell the first ones I made are not as stretchy as the other ones. And it's good to know how the different cast off techniques works, because pattern doesn't always specify which one to use. And And then it's up to you to choose. Now, let's say you're working, but then all of a sudden you drop a stitch, right? See here, you drop it, and what you see, you find that. How do we work this? If you drop a stitch, don't panic. All you need is, actually you don't need anything, but it's easier with a crochet hook. What you're gonna do is you're going to go through the stitch you dropped, and then just pull up a loop through here. So you're gonna grab this one from the back and just pull it up and through like this. And there you go, you fixed your stitch. Now if you feel it's hard to do with the knitting needles, you could actually just bring in a crochet hook of any size. You just do the same. You go through the needle, through the loop, with the crochet hook, and then you go onto the yarn that you dropped it from, like that, and then you just want to put it back on the hook, on the needle, oh, that's a twisted stitch. You want this side to be ahead of this side, then you know it's not twisted. And then just keep on working. Now you can tell no difference. See? So that's it for this tutorial on the basics of knitting. I hope you found this video helpful. I'll be back soon with more knitting content. So if you don't want to miss out, please subscribe to this channel. And I hope I'll see you back here soon.